back to TAKEdown MMA. This is our third and final segment for the week. I'm Evan Herzog of the Fight Magazine. As always, to my right and your left, Albert Rosales of Grinders Fitness. We're going to wrap this week's episode up with talking a little bit about Bellator and their heavyweight Grand Prix. Always got to throw quotes around that one because, as we know, that there are some middleweights and there are some light heavyweights.
Yep.
And
it's just a Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's just a Grand Prix. It's an old school, open weight Grand Prix. But last night, another one of their semifinals took place. 3 of the 4 have taken place now, or quarterfinals. 3 of the 4 have taken place now. That one last night, of course, the dream matchup, the match that everybody's been talking about for years. The former Pride champion and what some people consider, and I should say, who some people consider the greatest heavyweight of all time in Fedor Emelianenko versus the former UFC champ, the great Frank Mir, who hasn't been the same guy the last few years, hasn't fought in a couple of years, but before that we saw him kind of up and down. But Fedor had been kind of up and down too. Thought maybe this would be kind of the last stand for the Emperor, but 48 seconds into round 1 last night, Frank Mir got the lights turned off, and Fedor finishes that one with some ground and pound. Were you surprised at all? Is that what you expected?
Honestly, I kind of thought it would be a long, boring fight. I thought Mir would probably just take him down and, just kind of grind it out a little bit. Just based off the performance of either guy, I wasn't a fan of the fight.
It's coming 10 years after.
Right, and they're way past their prime. But as far as the finish goes, that's probably the best turnout that Bellator could have asked for.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Other than if they had just a 3-round war or something like that, I think that's the best turnout they could have asked for, because you still have Fedor in the tournament now, and I know, even myself included, a lot of people didn't think Fedor was going to make it this far, so it's good that it happened. Mir showed the same holes that he's always shown. His striking's never been great. He overextended and reached, and he got caught with a counter left hook, and with Fedor's power, he can turn the lights out whenever he wants to. So the next matchup, I think Fedor's got a favorable matchup. Getting Chael Sonnen next. I think that's a very good matchup for him. Obviously, Chael's going to do the same thing. He's going to try and wrestle and try and grind him out, and I kind of feel like Fedor's going to have a little bit too much size and power. I think he probably knocks out Chael.
I think Frank got a little overzealous there, because he did kind of graze and drop Fedor in the first 10 seconds of the fight, which is hard to believe, because only 30 plus seconds later it's completely opposite.
Well, I think what we've seen with Fedor is that his chin has started to deteriorate. I mean, you've seen it in
that Maldonado fight, that Fabio over in Russia, that really controversial fight.
Yeah.
That was it ended up getting overturned, but he was knocked out 4 times in that fight.
Right. And let's think about this: Fedor 10 years ago, Maldonado wouldn't have made it 2 minutes. That guy.
No.
Guy's got to know when to hang.
I was nervous.
He's making it work, and he's made it to the next round, so good for him. Man, honestly, who do you have left? You've got King Mo and Bader.
That's May 12th, I think, which is probably the most interesting and even matchup on paper in the whole Grand Prix so far.
Yeah, so I kind of expect Fedor to come out with a win against Chael, and then I kind of see Bader winning against King Mo.
And then he has Matt Mitrione after that.
Mitrione to me is the problem.
I think the tournament gets interesting if Ryan Bader wins, and if I don't think I agree. I think Fedor Chael is a fun build up.
Right.
Chael's always last night he insulted the city of Chicago, and then insulted Fedor, and then left the cage. In typical American gangster fashion. And I think that's fun, but I think, at the end of the day, this is his best fights were at middleweight. This is a middleweight wrestler that if he bends down, he could get hit with that exact same punch that Frank got hit with. But I do think if Bader can win, I think that side of the bracket is interesting.
I think that honestly, I think the person who's going to be the toughest match is going to be Mitrione. He's going to be a problem for everybody because he's a real heavyweight.
Athleticism?
He's a real heavyweight, and honestly, he's younger than everybody else. Bader to me is the best fighter in the tournament, but he's a light heavyweight. So we'll see how that goes. But there's some interesting things that could happen. So we'll see what happens.
I want to talk a little bit about Bader and King Mo, because I do think Bader has the superior wrestling. I mean, you never know until you get him in there.
Right.
They're both All-American wrestlers. I think that Bader has shown that his wrestling has got him further in the game.
I think his MMA wrestling is better than King Mo's, yeah.
But if he gets discouraged on 1 or 2 takedowns, as a coach, because I know what I'm thinking, is you continue to try to get the takedown, because we've seen King Mo put people flat unconscious before.
Yeah, but Bader's got power too, so I don't know that's...
You're not worried about him getting caught by a big shot from King Mo?
No, because you haven't seen it a lot from Bader. You haven't seen him get hurt, get knocked out, stuff like that. You haven't really seen that a lot from Bader. We've seen him lose fights and stuff, but it's... King Mo just... He hasn't looked good recently. Like, he just... If he's really into his striking game and putting his combinations together, he looks good. But a lot of it's been one punch at a time, a big swing. He's not really putting his striking together like he used to. So, and to me, whoever wins this fight is going to be the one who puts their striking together better with their wrestling. Whoever can set their takedowns up better with their hands. I don't see Bader getting frustrated with wrestling or anything like that.
And that's what I'm kind of wondering. Do you think he could get discouraged?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so.
Okay,
and personally, I don't see either one of these guys being able to hold the other on the ground too much.
So I was going to say, do you think King Mo will get frustrated if he can't, because he doesn't have the experience level? He's fought in tournaments like this in Japan, but he doesn't have the experience at the highest level. Bader, only losing a handful of fights, right, and he's been fighting at the highest level.
Well, the other thing that's going to come into play is the cardio, and we've seen King Mo get tired.
Bader has cardio.
We've seen King Mo slow down towards the ends of fights, and I think, and especially in this kind of a fight where you're going to be wrestling and striking and wrestling, this is where it's going to push your cardio. It's going to test a little bit. So,
and who knows how much he's worked on his cardio, being that it's a heavyweight fight, and he knows he needs to put on that extra weight, because Bader is a strong dude regardless.
Right.
I don't imagine Bader will come in at a huge... let's put it this way, I don't think Bader's putting on weight for this Grand Prix.
I don't think so either.
He doesn't need to.
And personally, I think Bader is the best athlete in this tournament. So, we'll see where it goes. Bader was the one I was pulling for from the beginning, but it is good to see Fedor's still alive. He's still in there. That's a good thing. Bellator's got to be ecstatic.
And I think it was a no-lose situation for them either way. Obviously Frank Mir's not as big of a name, but he's still a big name for guys like myself. Grew up watching him. He was someone that I always looked forward to watching. So.
Well, it's crazy how much the tournament could have changed.
Oh, goodness.
So imagine if Mir would have finished this fight. Imagine if he would have finished Fedor. Now it's Mir against Chael. That's a completely different fight, And now all of a sudden, now you have a real heavyweight Mitrione on one side of the bracket. You got a real heavyweight Mir on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden the tournament completely changes. Whereas where we're at now, I think it's a little bit more open. You could take any of these guys and say, oh, this guy's got a chance to win us all. So, this was a good turnout for them. I really think this was a good turnout for them.
I thought it was interesting you talk about the real heavyweight, and not because this is just kind of an open Grand Prix like we've discussed. I found it interesting. Prior to the fight last night, they asked Chael up in the booth with Glazer, that they asked him who he would like to see, and he said, "Do you see Frank Mir? Do you see how big Frank Mir is? And he likes to wrestle too." He said, size-wise, I match up a lot better with Fedor. Wrestling-wise, I match up a lot better with Fedor. Chael got the guy he wanted.
Right.
Well, because matchup-wise on paper.
Even if Chael gets a takedown against somebody like Frank Mir's dangerous off his back.
Oh,
that's dangerous. If you hit the ground, then, when you're able to submit somebody like Nogueira and some of these guys that he's submitted,
And he's going for the kill when he submits. He self-admittedly, kind of gets off on bones cracking and
It's
stuff.
completely changed the tournament by Frank Mir losing. It's completely changed it.
It's pretty shocking, but, you know, I guess we shouldn't be too shocked. Fedor continuing to prove, I think he's 41 now, that he can turn the lights out on anybody at any time. And everybody keeps talking about if the game's passed him by, but he just doesn't. It doesn't really matter if his right hand connects or his left
for
hand.
him to pull out this win too, I don't know if you even heard, but from what I was hearing, the FBI was actually at the hotel and they were following Fedor around the entire week. So
Really?
I read an article that said that the FBI actually went to the hotel and asked for Fedor's room number. Went straight up to his room. They went into his room for a little bit, came back out and left. So there's a lot of speculation on what's going on there. They said it doesn't look like Fedor did anything criminal, but we do know he's friends with Putin. He's very good friends with Vladimir Putin, and you know, connections with Trump and everything else. So who knows what's going on there? But how crazy is that you've
Good
got
God.
one of the biggest fights of your life, and the FBI shows up at your hotel room?
FBI didn't go get an autograph. They weren't seeking an autograph.
They're definitely not there to watch the fight. You know,
I think that's a strange one. It's
I just read that yesterday. But
I'm sure that's not going to help help getting the UFC into Russia anytime soon. They've spoke about it, trying to get there in September. But if he gets permission to fight outside of Russia from Putin, is what I heard, and that this. If that's true, if that's all going down, I didn't hear anything about that, but now I'm going to have to look into it. If the FBI, if the American FBI is jacking with like the GOAT heavyweight that just so happens to be from Russia the week of his fight, that could put the skid a little bit on a UFC Russia event.
It's crazy,
so
man.
We'll see. Yeah. Politics are falling over into everything in the world that we live in.
Always
but
does.
that's interesting. Gonna look into that. We'll see. Hopefully Fedor gets out of the country okay, and we don't have any missing person reports on it or anything like that. But that's gonna do it for this week on Takedown MMA. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm Evan Herzog of the Fight Magazine. Albert Rosales of Grinders Fitness. Join us next week where who knows what we'll be talking about, man. But join us then. IBC.us and